probably going in your favor. You're probably going to be... They're losing 3 life, definitely. But because of the lifelink, it's probable you're only losing 1 or 2. So it gives you actually a favorable race there.
Yeah.
And then versus Merfolk, if they don't have a Lord of Atlantis out, a Rock's War Monk is big enough to stop the first Lord's use of pumping.
Now, another thing I think that, and I mentioned this last round, is I think the no bans that looks like they started off. I'm not even sure what that land is.
That might be a irrigation ditch, I think.
Okay, so Gerry starts off with his turn 1 play, which is.
It's one of the sacrifice lands. I believe it's irrigation ditch. It might be Tinder Farm.
It is irrigation ditch.
Yeah, irrigation ditch taps for a white mana, or you can sacrifice it and get a black-blue mana. Now, this was most commonly seen in Terravore style, like balancing things, for example. You also might see this occasionally in basically those decks that were trying to explode into some sort of play and didn't care about losing the land.
So Brian, on the other hand, starts with a Windswept Heath into a Tropical Island into a Noble Hierarch. Gerry Thompson playing an archetype that I'm not familiar with in Legacy. It doesn't seem to be one that shows up very often. Hypergenesis.
Another irrigation ditch from Gerry Thompson. Next turn, he could have access to as much as 5 mana if he wanted to sacrifice, and then just lay a land and tap it.
So Brian brainstorms here during his main phase here.
Now, Gerry's a means to trigger the Hypergenesis are 4 Violent Outburst and 3 Ardent Plea. Interestingly, he also has 1 copy of Eureka. Eureka, for those of you who don't know, is one of the only Magic cards to have a scientific equation on it. Or to be fair, a mathematical equation.
Yeah, that's one of those kind of fun old cards that...
Eureka is what Hypergenesis is
it's
replicating,
exactly.
Essentially. It's slightly different.
Yeah, well...
It does not have the same exact effect text. And now we see a City of Brass, I believe? Yep, City of Brass. Show and Tell. And I think I see an Emrakul in his hand.
This game could be over in short order.
Force of Will from Brian Meinders.
That will help.
No
things.
Show and Tell for Gerry. Gerry does have 4 Force of Will and 3 Misdirection of his own. We get a Tundra from Brian Meinders. He sacrifices a Wooded Foothills. Pardon me, not a Wooded Foothills. He sacrifices a Windswept Heath. He could go for a Natural Order here, perhaps.
The difference between Hypergenesis and Eureka is that Eureka puts a permanent into play, which could be Planeswalker, whereas Hypergenesis specifies either artifact, creature, enchantment, or land. So no Planeswalkers off of that.
It is indeed a Natural Order. And he waits to make sure it resolves. Gerry says, sure. So we're going to see Progenitus. If Brian happens to have a Rafik in his hand and a land, he could kill Gerry next turn.
He certainly could. But even if he doesn't, Gerry's on a very short clock either way. Gerry has another Show and Tell there, though.
Gerry has a Progenitus in his hand, I think.
I thought he did, too.
I think he has.
This would be very interesting.
Show and Tell.
Attention Magic players, I need Nitin Sethi and Joseph Countryman to the side of this area, please. Nitin Sethi and Joseph Countryman to the side of this area, please. Your booster draft is waiting on you.
Okay, we're waiting to see. Here's a selection. I select this card, says Gerry Thompson. I select this card.
And surprise,
Emrakul. And Brian is like, that's it.
That's one way to beat a Progenitus.
I look at Gerry's smile there. He's like, oh, he had a Progenitus. I got a little bit more.
Man, this is an epic weekend. We've seen 3 Eldrazi in play at the same time. And Emrakul and a Progenitus on opposite sides of the board, very briefly. Just there. Saw...
To the sideboard they go. Gerry Thompson, let's see, he could bring in Platinum Angel. He might bring in Ricochet Trap as a means to fight against opposing Force of Wills. I could see Urabrask the Hidden as a possibility. And he has a lot of Spirit Guide action in his sideboard.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's for. I know what they do.
Right,
He's got 2 Elvish Spirit Guides and 3 Simian Spirit Guides.
Just
Perhaps in
more-
some matchups he needs to go turn 1 Hypergenesis.
I mean, it's potential. I mean, he can go turn 1. He can go turn 1 Hypergenesis. He can go turn 1 Show and Tell into Emrakul, as he just did there, although it wasn't turn 1.
And Brian, on the other hand, access to Path to Exile. Let's see.
Worship.
Worship might do some work.
Although not. I mean,
Worship won't stop Emrakul from
Yeah.
from wrecking
annihilating
house.
you. Yeah.
Daze actually might be one of the best cards Brian can bring in.
You're right. Yeah, I agree. Look at that 2 Baneslayer Angels. That's an interesting.
Well, the
Interesting
2
card to see
Baneslayer Angels are after a bunch of scribble marks. I'm guessing that Brian Meinders, he had an idea for what he wanted, scribble, 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 not that. Another idea for what he wanted, scribble, 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 not that. And finally was like, I just need a big monster when I get into Monster Wars with, say, Zoo.
My theory is that he went 4 or 2 Sarah Angel. Went, no, there's a better one than that. Scribbled it out and went Exalted Angel. And then scribbled that one out. And wrote Baneslayer Angel.
At least
and then
Exalted
stuck with
Angel
that.
is something that you can conceive of as being worth putting next to Baneslayer. Because there is something real about being able to cast it for 3.
That's true. All right, fine. He went Sarah Angel, then he went
And no,
Sarah
Exalted
Avatar.
Angel,
No, that
Exalted
doesn't make
Angel is
sense.
totally reasonable.
Sarah Avatar. No, that's not what I'm thinking of.
I mean, there's something exciting about going turn 2 Morph, turn 3 Exalt You.
Especially if you have the Noble Hierarchy
Yeah.
play for the Exalted Angel.
Mhm.
The Exalted trigger on the Exalted Angel.
And now we have the sideboarding here wrapping up. We're going to have to see what happens with Gerry Thompson. That smile on Jerry's face when he got the kill, he's like, felt pretty good, right? He thought you had me with that Progenitus, right?
Progenitus is weak sauce.
Gerry is definitely one of those players that when he's winning, you can really see it in his face.
The crazy, this is nuts. I mean, just looking at the last, we have 2 rounds worth of Legacy that we're looking at here, and the creatures in these decks, Progenitus, Terastodon, Emrakul, Blazing Archon, Jin-Gitaxias, Iona, I thought this was Legacy. Aren't these supposed to be little guys? Isn't this supposed to be all about Tarmogoyfs and Vendilion Clicks and then Wild Nacabals and little guys that are just getting in?
And then Brian has Rafiq, for example.
Right, Rafiq.
Interestingly, you mentioned Blazing Archon.
Yeah.
Blazing Archon would have been another card that could have saved Ely Cassis if he had had access to it.
Right, he did not have that. That's one that's a typical. You kind of see that in a lot of Reanimator lists, but
I think that he actually used to have it in his sideboard.
I think there's been a version of his list recently that had it. I'm almost positive.
And they offer the cut to each other.
Another thing, I was going to bring this up early before Game 1 started, was No Bant has a little bit better matchup against Reanimator just because of the Swords to Plowshares that can remove the creatures from the game and not allow him to get them back with something like Exhume or Reanimate or Animate Dead or something like that.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is the Star City Games Live Open Series here in Boston. I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Joey Pasco. We have on the left Brian Meinders playing No Bant and Gerry Thompson on Hypergenesis on the right side of the screen. This morning we saw the end of the Star City Games Standard Series, taken down by Red Blue Splinter Twin, and today we're just beginning the Legacy portion of the tournament, and we're going to see who knows what as a champion at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Gerry Thompson make the top 4 or higher.
Yeah,
he made top 4
8.
this morning.
Yeah, top 4, exactly. But congratulations to Anders Simpson-Wolf, who was our winner. He had him in the booth a little while ago. And
he was great. He was a really, really great competitor. And he seems he has the, as he said, the fire. He's ready now. He wants to start hitting these Star City Games Open Series. He says, I've got the travel money. I'm going to start doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the turn 4 Splinter Twin combo win in Game 3 to take the tournament down.
Right.
That'll definitely do that to you. If you didn't have the fire before.
Windswept Heath gets my favorite dual land, Tropical Island.
And we're going to see a repeat of his start in Game 1 where he has a Noble Hierarch.
Do you have a favorite dual land? You look like a Badlands guy to me.
Badlands? No way. There's a Noble Hierarch.
And it looks like a Sulfur Vent from Gerry Thompson.
Got to go with Tundra or Underground Sea. Probably Tundra. I like Taiga's art, though, a lot. Rob Alexander.
And second turn Sylvan Library. I am a big fan of Sylvan Library.
Me too. I've had the same one copy of Sylvan Library since I've played Magic. Since I got it, I got one copy. I've never traded away, never got a second one. Still the same one, and now it's in my Legacy decks.
Gerry does not have a second land, says go. Yeah, my column was definitely named after Sylvan Library.
Yeah, what was it?
Sullivan Library.
Yeah.
You'll be
Very
seeing
nice.
more of that in the coming weeks. I've been taking a long break because of preps for grad school, so... Now, in play, we have Brian Meinders with an island, a tropical island, a bird of paradise, a noble hierarch, and a Sylvan Library. Opposite him, with 20% of the permanents that Brian Meinders has, is Gerry Thompson with a lone Sulfur Vent. Brian Meinders appears to be taking 8. That's what we call the Necro Hut. Take 8 damage, 2 extra cards.
Yeah, Gerry seems to be very far behind here, but it may not even matter. Yeah, I mean...
He doesn't need very many cards or mana to actually get going.
Right. It's interesting, too. Brian drew those extra cards and then didn't do anything with them. You know?
Probably very reactive cards.
Must be, but I mean, I guess he really wanted them that badly. I guess it's...
Any discards?
Is that the Cascade?
Yeah, that's
thingy?
the Violent Outburst.
Yeah. It's in Standard, and nobody really played it very much in Standard, but it goes side by side with Hypergenesis. It's one of the cheapest Cascade spells, and being able to Cascade into Hypergenesis is pretty big. That was the interaction for Extended, and that was likely going to take over Modern as well, but Hypergenesis was banned in Modern. We're going to be talking quite a bit about Modern, I think, today in between rounds.
I love Modern. I mean, I love the format so far.
Yeah.
But I have my reservations about how it's being done for Philly.
We'll talk about that in a bit. I'd love to hear your opinion there.
4/5 mana. What do we got?
Acidic Slime, no.
Baneslayer Angel from the board. He brings in Baneslayer.
Is it a...
Huh. It's not you. The computer just keeps rebooting for some reason.
Oh, wow. Baneslayer Angel, as we were saying, not something you expect to see here in Legacy, but 5/5 still beats for 5 damage and gains you 5 life.
That's right. He'll be actually beating for 6.
That's
now,
true.
Baneslayer with Sylvan Library is a nice little engine.
Yeah.
I'll just take 8 again. Attack.
Yeah. I think Gerry has an Emrakul in hand. Not doing him any good right now, but there's Rafik and many.
Rafik! Oh my goodness.
Gosh. This is what is this? Is he just playing a standard deck from last year? I'm not.
He's like, might as well Force a Will that. That's a pretty rough card there. I mean, Rafik would mean that Baneslayer Angel. Oh, Force a Will fight over the
Baneslayer's gonna swing
and
for
Rafik.
12.
No, for 14.
Oh, for 14, you're right.
Another Force of Will. Double Force
Oh my
over
gosh,
Rafik.
there's 4 Force of Wills on the table right now. 1 removed from the game, 3 on the stack.
I mean, that seems like a worthwhile fight for Gerry.
Sure, why not? He removes a Progenitus, which is somewhat relevant. Baneslayer Angel only getting in for 6. right, Jerry, what do you got?
Sacrifices for 2 mana. Taps
Days
for
1.
1. Violent Outburst. There are very few targets in his deck. I believe it's only the 2 Hypergenesis.
Yeah, he should have. It's very likely he just set it up that way. And
I'm pretty sure.
yeah, looking at the list quickly, it's definitely nothing else he can hit but Hypergenesis. So we have a
Daze.
Daze,
Wow.
which
That's
looks
pretty
like it
devastating.
successfully countered it. No, wait.
Oh, because of the he dazed the Violent Outburst, and Jerry's like, that's fine. Because remember, the trigger,
Oh,
the
wow,
Cascade
yeah.
trigger is the
You're
thing
right.
to deal with there. I thought, like, okay, he's going to get the Hypergenesis, and then he's going to get dazed. And like, nope, we didn't even get to that point. He dazed the Violent Outburst.
Yeah. Oh my. Oops. That was like a demigod of revenge mistake all over again, right? That whole thing where it's like, counter your demigod. Sure, it comes into play when.
Oh boy, it's Chroma's Memorial, and in hand, I see
Another Squidward.
an Emrakul.
Squidward.
Here's Emrakul. Here's another
have a
Baneslayer.
Baneslayer.
I will attack with Emrakul. And it doesn't tap because I've got the the Memorial
Right,
out.
the Chroma's Memorial gives Emrakul, well, flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black, and protection from red. Oh my. Brian Meinders' side of the board, annihilated.
Annihilated.
Does he have a Progenitus in play? Is that? I mean, that's a Progenitus, right?
I think that's a remove from game Progenitus for Force of Will.
Okay. It's just kind of sitting there. I was like a little confused. Maybe it came into play when I looked away. But
No, I'm pretty sure. Oh, maybe it came into play from the Hypergenesis. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, If he had it in hand, I'm sure it did. One thing that Chroma's Memorial does not give is lifelink, and Jerry's only at 11. So,
Theoretically, if he kept the Noble Hierarch and the Progenitus, he could live. But I
right.
don't think he can do that. I think he doesn't have enough permanence. 1. Oh, he might have it. 2. Oh, maybe he doesn't see it. 3, 4, 5. 6. He doesn't see it. He has the kill.
Yeah.
He had the Noble Hierarch there so that
Noble
the
Hierarch,
Progenitus would be able to deal 11.
You know what it is? Brian's at 15, so he has to block.
But he can't block. Doesn't have pro white.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't have pro white. He has to block. Okay.
That's what
there
it
we
is.
go.
He has to block. He had to do that. Yeah.
And
Because
that's all.
if he did what we were saying,
Then he
and set it up
dies
so
to
he
the
wins,
attack.
He just dies.
Because the Chroma's,
Yeah.
he's at 15 life. I didn't realize he was low enough
that was
for
what
that.
it was. That was what threw me off a bit too. I was looking at the board and not the life totals. Well, I was looking at Jerry's
Life totals
total.
matter.
Yeah, I definitely looked at Jerry's, but I didn't realize Brian was at 15.
If Brian Meinders had
So-
one more life, Brian would have been able to kill Gerry on the swingback.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. I mean, Gerry just took that match really kind of out of nowhere. I mean, like I said, Brian has this kind of explosive start where he's got multiple lands, got birds, Noble Hierarch, lands
Right.
of Baneslayer, Angel, and Jerry's got like 2 lands. 2 lands goes Violent Outburst, and then Brian makes a mistake in the with the daze,
Yeah.
right? Instead of